Your business exists because you had the idea to start it. Everything begins in our minds. That's why your business results cannot outgrow your current level of thinking. Do you want to serve more clients, make more money, without working more or burning yourself out? Grow yourself first as a leader of your business, because that's who you are, a leader, even if you're the only person in your business right now. When you lead yourself first, the business results will always follow. My name is Maggie. I'm an international business and leadership coach, an expert in business mindset, strategy, and high performance. I created the Diamond Effect podcast to help you elevate your thinking, expand your perspective, and through it, grow your business without overwhelm. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Diamond Effect podcast. I'm your host, Maggie, and today's episode is one that I've been wanting to record for a while. Because I do talk a lot on this podcast about strategy, mindset, habits, systems, and growth, but I don't often pull back the curtain on how I actually work with my clients, the philosophy behind my coaching, and why I built my approach the way I did, and what makes me different as a coach from others out there in the market. And I teach that to the client a lot, but it's easier to teach than to it yourself. So today, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I think by the end of this episode, whether you're a prospective client or someone who just loves learning about how great businesses are built, you are going to walk away with a completely different way of thinking and what it actually takes to grow a service-based business sustainably. So let's get into it. I want to start with something I see a lot, and it's one of the biggest reasons service-based business owners, they stuck even when they're working incredibly hard. Most business owners look at their business in pieces. They hear about Facebook ads and think, oh, I need to run ads. So then they invest in ad scores. Then they hear about creating an email sequence for their website visitors and people that subscribe to their newsletter. So they spend time building that sequence. And then someone tells them that they should hire a VA to have more time to generate sales and money. So then they hire a VA without even knowing what to delegate to a VA or systems to train that person. And that creates more work for them and more chaos than the problems it solves. So ultimately, what they end up with is a mismatch of disconnected strategies. A tactic here and a tool there, a course from 6 months ago they've never finished, and none of it talks to each other. So here's the fundamental problem with that type of approach of running a business. You're never looking at your business holistically. And your business is not a collection of separate functions, right? It's an interconnected system. So if you think about it, your positioning affects who you attract as a potential client. Then who you attract affects your conversion rate. Your conversion rate defines your revenue, your sales. And then your revenue affects what resources you have to invest in your business, what type of team you can build, what type of tools you can invest in. And then your team affects your service delivery. And then, of course, your service delivery creates your reputation. So if you look at it this way, everything in your business is connected. But when you fix one thing in isolation without really understanding how it connects to everything else, you often create new problems in your business without solving the original one. Or you often put a Band-Aid solution in your business without solving the root cause of what truly created the problem. And then when you have a Band-Aid, there's ripple effect of cracks created in different areas. So that's why I build the sustainable skill system that I use when I coach my clients. Because it's not a collection of tactics but it's a holistic framework that looks at your entire business, your strategic foundation, your client acquisition and service delivery, and then your scale infrastructure. And we look at that simultaneously. And what it does is it allows us to know that when we improve one area, we're improving it in a way that strengthens everything else and not creates problems in other areas. So now let me talk about why having a proven framework matters in the first place. Because some people hear framework and they actually think of something very rigid, formulaic. They think of, oh, it's a one size fits all. And that's actually the opposite of what a great framework does. Think about it this way. A great architect doesn't design every building from scratch with 0 reference points, right? They have proven principles like structural integrity of a building, load-bearing walls. They know how to create flow between the spaces, and they apply those principles to every project. But then the building they design for a family home in the suburbs will look completely different from a downtown office tower that they design. You have same principles, but then the expression of those principles is completely different. So that's what a proven framework gives you as a business owner. It's a tested, research-backed set of principles and pathways that you know work in business. So then you're not reinventing the wheel or throwing random tactics at the wall and hoping that something sticks. And I'm a business geek, so I love to always look at the research and what make things stick and work in business. And I will give you one piece of research that it's really fascinating that sits behind my sustainable scale system. So a 2025 peer-reviewed study published in Business Horizons found that cognitive complexity, meaning the ability to process nuanced information and integrate multiple perspectives simultaneously, is one of the most critical factors in a business leader's ability to scale successfully. Okay, so in other words, your business can only grow as far as your thinking can grow, as far as you're able to assess different perspectives, look at different things, see how they connect to each other, and make the best decisions from that assessment. This is why 80% of service-based businesses stay stuck at the same revenue for years. Not because the owner doesn't work hard enough, it's not because the market isn't there, but because they're still thinking, let's say, as a busy freelancer, focusing on one thing at a time, reacting instead of being proactive and strategic about what they do, working in the business most of the time and telling themselves they don't have time to work on the business, while they're trying to build something that requires CEO level thinking. So my sustainable scale system is designed to elevate your cognitive complexity as a leader, and at the same time, as we build your business together. So you're not getting just a better strategy when you work with me. You actually become a better thinker. You do become a more strategic decision maker, a true CEO. And when you have that combination, this is what creates truly amazing results for my clients and lasting sustainable growth for your business. Now, here is where I do want to push back on something that is common in the coaching industry. Because there are coaches out there who have a formula, like a very specific, very rigid formula. And their entire approach is, this is the way, right? You have to follow these steps in this exact order and you will get results. And in some situations, for some clients, it works. Don't get me wrong, it does. But what I found after years of coaching hundreds of business owners across different industries, at completely different stages and with completely different personalities, goals, and ideal clients is that for when there's a formula that's too prescriptive, it doesn't account for a lot of circumstances in that business and the human that runs it. So it doesn't account for the fact that maybe one business owner is drowning in overwhelm and can't think straight, while another has actually clarity, but they have no systems to deliver. It also doesn't account for the fact that maybe one business owner needs to fix their foundation before they can grow, while somebody else has a solid foundation, but a broken sales process. So it doesn't account for different industries, different seasons of lives, different risk tolerances, or even different visions for what actually success looks like for the individual person. So what happens is when you take a too prescriptive approach, you're essentially handing every client the same box and just telling them to fit inside it, whether they fit or not, right? So I compare it always to a Cinderella shoes. You're trying to fit the client into a shoe that's either too big or too small for them. And then when that doesn't fit, often the client feels bad that there's something wrong with them because they think that they didn't follow the formula right, where in reality, the formula just didn't fit the client. So that's where my framework is different, because it's more a set of principles, like the architect example I gave you, that a very prescriptive step-by-step process. And it's a proven framework with 3 pillars, and every single one of my clients move through those 3 pillars eventually. But how we start, which pillar we tackle first, and how quickly we move, and how we apply that pillar to each client, it's always tailored to the specific client in front of me and their specific situation and where they are in their business. And also to what's creating the biggest bottleneck in their business right now that prevents them from moving forward. I don't hand my clients a box and tell them to fit inside it. I hand them a blueprint, and then we build what fits their foundation that they've already built in their business. So let me show you exactly what I mean through that by just giving you examples of 3 of my clients, because I do think this is where you will see it in more concrete and real way. So client number 1 is the owner of a car repair shop. And I recently started working with them, and they're growing. Their basic processes are established and the business is coming in. But when the client came to me, they were completely overwhelmed, very stressed out to the point where it was affecting their health, their focus, their ability to think clearly about anything beyond just day-to-day work or a crisis at hand, right? And the client does have bigger goals. They want to build not just a mechanic shop, but like a whole group of car-related businesses that they want to develop under the umbrella, right? But my client couldn't even start thinking about those goals, not to mention doing something towards them, because the day-to-day was consuming everything and because of the stress that they were feeling. But my client couldn't even see those goals from where he was standing because the day-to-day was so consuming everything. So where did we start? We didn't start with marketing or business development or brand strategy. We started with him, with his stress and overwhelm, and also create space in his mind and then in his calendar so he can actually function at a higher level and know how to create time for the CEO tasks and how to create time to work on his business. So we implemented time management, prioritization tools and habits. And when we created structure around his week so he could think strategically, then we could think about growing the business further, right? And that started looking like hiring additional mechanics so that the CEO can step off the tools and create capacity to start operating like the CEO and start growing the empire instead of serving individual client as a mechanic. So once now he has that foundation, space to think and clarity, we're moving into business development, growth activities, and so on. Then around the same time, I actually started working with a professional organizer client who has grown her business to a great point, but then hit a ceiling. And her challenge wasn't necessarily the overwhelm in the same way like my car mechanic client. And it wasn't even the lack of clients, but it's more of she has grown to the point where adding clients would break her business and would affect the delivery of her services, which of course she doesn't want to compromise because her business is very reputable. The clients love her and what she delivers because of the quality. So what we started with is more of a foundation of her brand, her service delivery processes, the client experience, documenting all of that. So then we can start hiring people, training them, and create the capacity in the delivery as the business will grow and then attract more leads, more projects, more clients. And then there is my client, Glory, whom I talk about a lot because she's grown her business in such an amazing way that I just love to share her story. She's a speech therapist who came to me in the relatively early stages of scaling her practice. She was overwhelmed. She was taking on too many clients herself, even though she started building a team, but she was holding herself back because she was terrified of growing her team more, even though the demand was there, the clients kept coming, right? So her challenge wasn't overwhelmed in the operational sense. It was more of a limiting belief, right? Her identity. She didn't see herself as a people leader. And without that shift, there was no amount of strategy that was going to help her build her team. So there we started with leadership development and helping her understand that building a team wasn't just a business strategy. It was a way to create a legacy that aligned with what she wanted to achieve, that aligned with her mission, that she could help way more families with a team that she could ever help alone. So we worked through her belief system, her leadership skills, then communication within the team, the training on her process. So we built training system for her staff so that the therapist could deliver the same quality of care that Glory's client expected. And then the result was that she grew from 3 therapists to, I think, over 23 or 25, and from $80,000 in revenue to nearly $1 million in 3 to 4 years. So when you look at these 3 clients, it's the same system, but a completely different entry point, but ultimately leading to the sustainable growth. So now here's the important thing I want you to take from those stories. Even though every client starts differently, even though the sequence, we adapt the sequence, and even though the pace and the focus shifts based on the person in front of me and based on their business, the 3 pillars of sustainable scale system are always there. So every client moves through strategic foundation, which is getting clear on your brand, your positioning, your niche, your business model, and also your CEO identity. Every client moves through client acquisition and service delivery because that builds a predictable lead generation, strong sales process, and then scalable service delivery system that then maintains quality of your services as you grow. And then every client moves through scale infrastructure, which is your financial systems, operational excellence, team building, and also delegation frameworks that then allows you to run your business without you as the owner or CEO being involved in every single action, every single decision. So the pillars don't change. It's just the sequence of when we apply what and also how we approach it does change. So that sequencing, that ability to look at each client and that identify exactly which pillar needs to come first for them to get the fastest and easiest results without overwhelm is where the real coaching lives, right? That's the art inside the science. Because I am committed to always looking at my client as a whole person, not just business metrics, but the human being running the business, their goals, also their stress levels, their energy, their confidence, their relationship that they have with themselves, with their life, with their business. And I truly believe that our businesses are a direct reflection of our thinking, because our thinking leads to the decisions we make about our business. And we cannot outgrow our current level of thinking without doing the work to expand it. So I also want to share with you something personal because I do think it also explains why I'm so committed to this approach. Before I became a coach, I spent many years in corporate, and majority of that was in leadership positions. And one of the most significant things I did was to help and co-scale a department from 80 people when I joined to 450 people across North America by the time I left. And that experience taught me something that no business course will ever do, even though I do have an executive MBA. Scaling, it's not just about adding more. It's about being intentional how you do it by building the right foundation so we can hold you adding floors to your building, right? By building the right systems so that the people you hire can be successful. And then, of course, by hiring the right people in the first place, and you need to do it in the right sequence that is different business to business. And then this way, growth doesn't break what you've already built and just builds on it. And I have seen what happens when organizations scale without system or without being ready to deliver. Unfortunately, this did happen in one of my employers where we weren't ready to deliver what was being sold to scale, and it led to my burnout. Now, I'm not going to complain about it because I wouldn't have had my business without that experience, but it's just a great lesson that I learned through that. When you don't have systems and as you scale your service delivery, quality will decline. Ours did at that time. People burn out, clients leave, they're not happy. So the very thing that can make your business great gets lost in the chaos of growth. And you have to be very careful about how you handle that growth. And I also have seen what happens when business owners try to grow without growing as leaders, without growing themselves, when they stayed in the weeds because they don't trust that they can hire a team who can do a great job. Or when they make reactive decisions because they haven't built this strategic thinking capacity to see the bigger picture. It usually keeps them stuck, overworked, overwhelmed, and not really creating the business and life that they truly want. So that's why I built Sustainable Scale System, because I've lived through at least one side of it, if not both. And I wanted my clients to have the benefit of everything I've learned through my own lived experience, but also through working for other businesses and observing and coaching clients. And I don't want my clients to go through the hard way to learn that, because there will be enough hard lessons that they will have anyways on their journey. Entrepreneurship, there's a lot of hard lessons we need to go through. So why not remove some of them or ease some of that? I think Emma Grady said if you follow her, is that she will take every shortcut possible because it can be hard even with the shortcuts. So why not take them when you can? So if you are a service business owner who has been piecing together some random strategies and wondering why nothing is sticking or why you're working so hard and you're not growing the way you want to grow, I do want you to consider that the problem might not be the individual strategies, But the problem might be that nobody has helped you to look at your business as a whole, as a connected living system that needs all of its parts working together. And that's what the Sustainable Scale System does. And that's what I do with every client in a way that's tailored specifically to their situation, where they are and where they want to go. And that's different for every single client I work with. So if you're listening to this and wondering, okay, which part of the system do I need most right now? What is the thing that is actually holding me back? That's exactly what my complimentary consultation is designed to help you and figure it out. So I'll ask you a number of questions. I will look at your business with fresh eyes, and then I will tell you exactly what I see, where the gaps are, what to prioritize, and how I can help. And just the clarity that you will get from that conversation is super valuable. And then you can decide if you want my help or not. No pressure at all. So I'll leave the link to book that consultation in the show notes. And thank you so much for listening today. If this episode gave you a new way of looking at your business, I would love for you to share it with a fellow business owner who needs to hear it. I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening today. If this podcast resonated with you, please come back. Also, you can leave a review on whatever platform you're listening. And if you have a suggestion, question, or a topic you would like me to talk about, let's get in touch via email. Email me at Maggie@stairwaytoleadership.com. See you in the next episode.